In the city of Slutsk, there was a renowned Rav by the name of the Ridvaz, Rabbi Yaakov David. He was a Rav in Europe. Eventually, in the 50s, I believe, he actually came to Chicago. And there was a doctor in the city of Slutsk who was a kaifer, who was an apikairos. And he would take a stroll in the late afternoon for health reasons. And one late afternoon, it was Thursday afternoon, this doctor was walking by the butcher shop. And you could imagine, in Europe, a butcher shop late Thursday afternoon. It's the busiest time of the week. And he looks into the store, and the store is completely filled up. It's customers galore. It's really a very busy time. And he overhears the owner of the butcher shop. He's like shouting at the people, "Get out already! Everybody get out of here! I have to go!" He's like pleading with them, "Please leave. If anybody needs meat, come back tomorrow. And if it's an emergency, come back in an hour." So the doctor goes over to the butcher. He said, "Butcher, look, you're not a wealthy man. You probably need the income. Why are you chasing everybody out of your store?" And he says, "Look, I know that these customers may never come back, but it's mincha time, and I have to learn a little bit today, and I have to daven, and parnasa comes from Shamayim." And then he adds the following. He says, "And besides, I have to worry about Olam Haba." And the doctor laughs. "Olam Haba? There's no such thing as Olam Haba." And the butcher says, "Maybe for you. Maybe you're not going to have Olam Haba. I'm hoping that I'm going to have Olam Haba." And that was like a dagger in the doctor's heart. And the doctor recovered very quickly. He said, "Listen, yeah, you believe in Olam Haba? You really think you're going to have Olam Haba? Would you like to increase your share in Olam Haba? I'll make a deal with you. I will gladly sell to you my share in Olam Haba for 1 ruble." So the butcher says, "The bargain of the century." The butcher pulls out of his pocket a ruble, hands it to the doctor, and dashes off to shul. Many years pass. 40 years pass. A long time. And he's still working in his butcher shop. And a very well-dressed woman walks into the butcher shop, and she presents herself as the almana of the doctor. And they exchange some pleasantries, and she she says, "Look, do you remember my husband?" He says, "Remind me." And she says like this, "Look, last night I had a dream, and my husband came to me in a dream. And he's in the world to come, and he's not in a good place. You see, he told me that they're judging him in the world to come. And they're weighing the mitzvahs and the averos. And he said it wasn't even close. He said he didn't even have a shot. And he was given a very harsh sentence in Olam Haba. And my husband, he starts screaming and crying, and he starts telling the Bezdin Shamala, look, I saved so many lives. I was a doctor. I was matzil nefashos. I healed so many people. I didn't charge them. I didn't charge the aniyim. Isn't that worth something? I mean, is that nothing?" And the Bezdin Shamala says, "You're making a good point. It's worth a lot. There's one problem, pal. They said you shot yourself in the leg. You sold your share in Olam Haba to the butcher. So there's nothing we could do. You gave it up. You would have had a really nice share in the world to come. But you sold it. You gave it away. And my husband came to me in a dream, and he's begging me to come to you and to nullify the sale. He's telling me he's eternally doomed if we don't, make another arrangement here, if we don't exchange the original sale." So the woman takes out of her pocket the ruble that the butcher had given her husband 40 years earlier, and he says, "Here, take it back. I need the mitzvahs." And he's looking at her, and she's looking at him. And she says, "Look, this is not the only time I had the dream. I'm having this dream every single night. My husband's coming back to me. He's screaming. He's crying. Give me my Olam Haba back. Do something to help me." And the butcher says, "You got to be kidding me. Look, I'm a simple butcher. Who knows if I have too many mitzvahs to my credit? Maybe I won't even have a share in the world to come. But now that you're telling me that your husband had so many mitzvahs, he saved lives, and he didn't charge the aniyim, and he had a big share in the world to come, and I bought it off him, there's no way I'm giving it back to him. So sorry, you're a nice lady, but I got to worry about my eternity." And he closed the store. And that night, the woman goes home, and she had another dream. And this time it's not a dream, this time it's a nightmare. And the husband is crying, and he's shrieking, and he's pounding. And he said, "I will be eternally doomed if you don't exchange the original deal. What I need you to do is I need you to go to the Rav of the city, I need you to go to the Ridvaz, and tell him there's a mekach tos over here. Tell him there's a problem here. We got to exchange the original deal. And she goes to the shul, and she waits outside. And she waits for the Rav to come out of the shul, and the Ridvaz sees her. And I'm not sure how many Rabbanim would actually take such a thing seriously, but he took it very seriously. And he said, tomorrow we're going to have a din Torah. So the Rav summoned the woman, the Rav summoned the butcher to a din Torah that he says is going to take place in the main shul of the city. And it's like the town is abuzz. They never heard such a crazy court case. It's not, nobody's suing anybody. The woman is suing the guy for her husband's Olam Haba. This is a Ma'isa Shahaya. And the entire shul fills up, and people are chattering, and people are yapping, and people are talking. It was on every WhatsApp, whatever that was back then. And everyone's offering their opinion, everyone's offering what they feel the halacha should be. And the woman gets up, and she says her side of the story. And he says his side of the story. And the Ridvaz says, give me 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, I'm going to come out of my office. I'm going to issue a psak din. And 30 minutes later, and you can imagine, everybody's offering their opinion. Everybody's saying, some people are siding with her, some people are siding with him. And everybody has their opinion. And the Ridvaz comes out 30 minutes later. And just bear with me, I never gave this class before, and I was quite sick today. The Ridvaz came out 30 minutes later, and he said, the psak is as follows. It has 3 segments to the psak. The first chapter of the psak is, the sale is batal, the sale is nullified, the sale is null and void. And everyone has like a palpable sign of relief. Everyone's like, phew. The sale is void. The Ridvaz explains, Olam Haba is not a tangible item. It's not a house. It's not a car. It's not an entity that you could transfer from one owner to the next. Olam Haba is the light, the illumination that is created when you do a mitzvah that shines in your neshama. You can't buy it, you can't sell it. Limashal, the Ridvaz says, you hire a forester, you hire a woodsman, you hire someone to chop down the wood of your forest. And you tell him, I'm giving you $500 to chop down the wood of my forest for a month. And at the end of the month, you pay the woodsman, and he says, you know what? Instead of giving me the money, give the $500 to somebody that I owe the money to. So he could do that. $500 is an entity, it's a physical entity. It's transferable. But think for a moment, Haga ba'atzmacha, just imagine. This forester has been working in the forest for a month. He's out in the mountain air. He's exercising his muscles. He just gained health. Could the forester say, all the air and all the good health and all the perk to my breathing that I achieved in the last 30 days, I want to transfer to somebody else? It's not transferable. It's not an entity. It's not a physical entity. Says the Ridvaz, Olam Haba is the light that you alone achieve. Nobody could get it for you. Nobody could give it to you. Nobody could sell it to you, and you can't buy it. And therefore, the sale is null and void. That's the first segment of the psak. Says the Ridvaz, but not so simple. The doctor lost his share in the world to come. And everybody gasps. The doctor lost his share in the world to come. That's right, the Ridvaz says. Because the Gemara tells us that it is possible for a person to lose their mitzvahs. The pasuk says, Tzidkas hatzadik lo yikatzilenu b'yom pishav. That a person's righteousness possibly cannot help them. When will a person's righteousness not help them? The Gemara says if you're mischared, if you regret what you did, then you lose what you did. And this doctor was not interested in his mitzvahs. He forfeited his mitzvahs. He sold his mitzvahs. The Gemara says in Kedushin that if you don't value Olam Haba, then you don't get Olam Haba. And this doctor sold his share in the world to come, so he lost his share in the world to come. And everyone's devastated. Here, the poor doctor, not only did he lose his ruble, right? Not only does the ruble go back to the butcher, he also lost his share in the world to come. And finally, says the Ridvaz, one last clause. The Kiddush Hashem that came about through this court case was so magnificent, was so overwhelming. And who was the cause of this Kiddush Hashem? The doctor. That Kiddush Hashem can never be taken away from him. The Mishnah says in Avos, Hamezakes harabim, zechus harabim taloi boy. That if you make the multitude righteous, the zechus goes to you. Says the Ridvaz, what was the Kiddush Hashem that came about as a result of this court case? Says the Ridvaz that the Kiddush Hashem was unfortunately to most Jews, and when I talk about Jews, I mean us, from a Yidden, observant Jews. To most Jews, the concept of Olam Haba is just a concept. It's just words. Yeah, Olam Haba, it's just an idea. But do we live our lives worried about Olam Haba? Yes, I know, we live our lives worried about our houses, we live our lives worried about our clothing, we live our lives maybe worried about our children, but do we live our lives worried about Olam Haba? Are we worried, what's our house going to look like forever and ever and ever and ever? Or are we just worried about the tiles of our house for the next 60 years? Which is more important? Which is longer? Which is a more important investment? Says the Ridvaz, people mistakenly relegate Olam Haba to the conceptual, to academic. And people don't take it seriously. People don't think about it. It's not on people's minds. But through this court case, Olam Haba became more of a reality. It became something real. It became something that people think about. It became something that people worry about. From this court case, people realized life is not a joke. Life is important. What you do matters. What you say matters. What you think matters. And it matters forever and ever. And this insight and this understanding that came about as a result of this court case, says the Ridvaz, accrues to the merit of this doctor. And therefore this zechus that he has will protect him from any punishment in Olam Haba.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.